Sorry? Qasas al-Quran. And what do you make of that title? Istighfar. When we say Qasas al-Quran, what comes to your mind? Green?
For sure.
Qasas? Stories. Stories in the Quran. Yes, but stories, just like any other fairy tale. Arisha, just like any other fairy tales, Qasas al-Quran. Stories, or more technically, narratives. Let me just say narratives. So, any fundamental difference between the two? Between narratives and stories? Qasas al-Quran. Qasas al-Quran, narratives of the Quran. That is stories given in detail in the Quran for reasons, of course. So, is there any reason for that? Do you imagine any reason for making narratives in the Quran? Lee? Learn from the what? From the past. Yeah. And any addition to that, Marina? Arisha, any addition? Sorry? The narratives of the Quran. What do you mean by narratives of the Quran? And of course, we may wish to know whether there are some wisdom behind it. So one of the sisters has already stated something about that. Okay? Historical, this is also part of history. And of course, history is a mirror. Collectively, is a mirror, because after some years, this is will go down in history as one day I had a very brilliant student called Arisha. And well, just in much the same way. So narratives in the Quran are there to stay. Have come to stay. They are not imaginary or fairy tales, but they are by far credible and solid. And inshallah, we're going to establish facts. But before that, we need to make some interesting points about the narratives in the Quran collectively. So first, we may wish to know that Quran employs various styles of expressions in various places. So sometimes it uses what they call qasam. It uses qasam in order to strengthen a point. Okay, Allah the Almighty, if He so wishes, may begin a sentence by what? By, for example, Wallahi, wa tallahi laqad arsalna ila ummin min qablik. Of course, He doesn't have to swear, but of course, just to strengthen the message and to, demonstrate extraordinary sample of His power and to capture our attention. So as we say here, the function, that is one of the basic main reasons behind, sending messages in a narrative forms is to strengthen the message in order, to consolidate their argument. For example, some people may wish to be skeptical about that, or cynics. Okay, so by applying some, adopting some strategies, for example, using various styles of expressions, like listen, like giving narratives. All this goes to confirm the strength of the message. Do you get that? So another reason to dispel suspicion or ambiguities that may arise in the mind of the reader. So sometimes a reader of any passage of the Quran may, tend to be, as I said, skeptical about the content. But if, for example, Allah the Almighty, send a message by making a credible, platform of, narrative. This will only strengthen the message in the heart of the reader. The mind that is affected by the disease of ignorance, suspicion, cannot be molded unless this ignorance and denial are shaken from its roots. So historical incidents relating to the certain nations and communities quickly and immediately attracts what? People's attention. People, as you know, naturally tend to be curious and of course tend to be moved by stories. We all know fairy tales and their impacts in our lives, right? So we do have something like Cinderella, for example, Alibaba and 40 Thieves, Rumpelstiltskins, and all that, you know. So all these strengthen our determination in, learning from experience, and of course raise our curiosity. So curiosity for knowledge, and of course, going back to these stories, to these narratives, drives us and move us to, hunt for more. So all these are some of the wisdom behind narratives in the Quran. So, which brings us to what? To linguistic meaning of qissa or qasas. Linguistically, qasas is what? It's just a plural. Qasas is what? Is a plural, which means narratives. Narratives. Singular is what? Qissa. So what is qissa? Story. So qasas, many stories. So it is taken from the root of the verb qassa, which means to follow one's track. Allah the Almighty say, فَارْتَدَّ عَلَى أَثَارِهِمَا قَصَصًا, when he was referring to Moses and his colleague Khidr. So this word, Allah the Almighty used this verb qassa, that is, they follow their track of the fish they were hunting. It is, of course, a very long story. The Quran says, referring to the mother of Moses, you all know the story. وَقَالَتْ لِأُخْتِهِ قُصِّي, and she said to the sister of Moses, قُصِّي, when we can, so go and track his information. قُصِّي, follow Moses, when he was, of course, taken by the people of Pharaoh. So if someone asks you about the linguistic definition of or linguistic meaning of qissa, all we have to do is what? Is to go back to these roots. That is qissa, qassa, which all confirm the origin of the word linguistically. It also refers to successive information. Allah the Almighty says, نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ. أحسن القصص, based on the stories, true accounts. But when it comes to technical definition of Qasas al-Quran, we can see that Qasas al-Quran refers to those narratives of the Quran about what? About situations, antecedents, events of earlier generations, nations, and of course past prophets and other real incidents. So of course people like Hamid Misra Abu Zayd and Muhammad Arkoon, who were, of course, excessively engaged in criticizing the foundation of the Quran by rejecting the concept of, narratives in the Quran, that saying that they have no base. So there is, of course, in other words, there is no difference between qissa and fairy tales. There is no difference between all the qasas referred to in the Quran and the fairy tales we, console our children with. So of course, the fundamental difference between the two is that qasas of Quran are not only real, but they are credible and solid. But fairy tales are just imaginary. They had no base. Do you get that? So the fundamental difference between fairy tale and Quranic narrative is that Quranic narratives are real, of course, beyond imagination. And fairy tale, They are not. They aren't. So Quran narratives, of course, in addition to that, in addition to what we see, Quran narrates customs, of course, and traditions of the past communities and provide a rational picture about them. As we historians always confirm that history is a picture, is a mirror of the past, and of course, every people has its own way of relating their history, relating its history, and of course, anyone who fails to learn from the history of the past is deemed to repeat the same mistake committed by the people of the past. So as we will go down to see later, as I said, out there, narratives of the Quran are real, contrary to the allegations of some Orientalists and biased historians. Narratives cited in the Quran are real, and of course not figment of history. Not figment of imaginations. Some may wish to ask you, just to challenge you on secular ground, just to confirm whether you have really understood what you are doing. So you need to know how to defend the argument of narratives of the Quran and how to counter-attack. I mean, the attack of, directing the authenticity of the Quran, that it is filled with baseless imaginary tales. You may wish to know how to, defend those arguments. So you will know this only if you master this topic. But of course, before that, we may wish to know the kind of narratives in the Quran. So narratives in the Quran are of various categories, but collectively, I think we have three. We have three main groups. Or categories. First, we have narratives of the apostles, such as Noah. You all know Noah. Who is that? Yeah. Who is Prophet Noah? When we talk about Noah, what comes to our mind? The hardship. Noah's Ark. Of course, he was the founder of the Ark. But is there any story related to the Ark? Yeah. But whenever we think of Ark, we think of what? We think of the determination, perseverance, and of course hardship. It also reminds us that the success is not. It is a journey. It is a very long journey. It is not a destination. It is a very long journey, and of course it entails some hurdles, obstacles, and all that. Prophet Noah, for example, lived some 950 years, but he managed to get only how much? 50 people. 50. Of course, the number was not specifically given in the Quran, but some say it is only 50, some say 100. Well, it doesn't matter even if it is 50 or 100, because if you look at the time frame, 950, imagine 950, and only how much? Just 50. ولبث فيهم ألف سنة إلا 50 عاما لقد أرسلنا نوحا إلى قومه. We have sent Noah to his people, and he lived how much? 950, and of course إلا 50 عاما, only 50. He lived 950, but of course only some little individuals, we can say a handful of people, just managed to accept the message. Yusuf, Abraham, Moses, Aaron, and of course Muhammad. The Quran provides the story of this prophet as a practical example of da'wah. وَكُلًّا نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ, as the Prophet as Allah the Almighty says, وَكُلًّا نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الرُّسُلِ مَا نُثَبِّتُ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. We are just telling you the narratives of the past, just to strengthen your examination, and of course, learn from what? From their experience. It tells us more about the scenery of the obstinate and stubborn people, and of course, the stages of da'wah and its evolution, and the consequences of rejection. Look at that. The consequences of rejection. So today we are focusing on study and history, and of course, which brings us to second category, Quranic narratives relating to the incident of the past. These types of narratives gives us a clear picture of the episodes of ancient period and the personalities who did not accept the message of their prophet. For example, we have what? Pharaoh. You know Pharaoh? You know Namrud? You know Ashab al-Sabt? Well, of course, it is just a very long story, but to cut it short, yeah, in the past, there used to be some people in a small village. By profession, they were fishermen, yeah, so they were prohibited to fish on what? On Saturday. But ironically, they get a huge amount of fish on the same day. On that day, the same day they were forbidden to fish, ironically they get a huge amount of fish. So they decided to play a trick with Allah the Almighty by, creating words, devising a trick so that they could get much more fish the next day, that is on Sunday. So they dig a very deep hole so that all the fish will just slip into that deep hole so that they will just collect it automatically the same day. Do you get that? So Allah the Almighty caused them. And of course, some of them were transformed into what? Into porks and monkeys as part of divine punishment, we can say. It also presents the story of some characters and the exemplary nature of their leadership, like King Zulqarnain, for example, and words like Balqis, those Quranic characters. It also speaks on believers of the past and their endurance, such as Ashab al-Kahf, of course, you know them, and Ashab al-Ukhdud. Allah the Almighty says, قُتِلَ أَصْحَابُ الْأُخْدُودِ. It's nothing but relating experience of those people who combat a certain level of hardship in the face of their determination just to strengthen their iman and remain with God. Finally, narratives relating to incidents occurred at the time of the Prophet. This gives account of the narratives pertaining to the time of the Prophet and the lessons to be extracted from the episode. For example, we had Surah Ali Imran. Surah Ali Imran, it is one of the longest chapters of the Quran. It has some 200 verses, and of course, there are various lessons to be taken from the surah. The most important, of course, crucially, and the most important lessons to be taken are determination, perseverance, and of course, combating challenges, especially from Kuffar. We had similar stories in Hunayn, Tabuk, and of course in Surah At-Tawbah. All these focus on what? On facing the challenges of Kuffar, and of course reviving and revitalizing the spirit of patience, if you like. So that, yeah, a person who is calling people to God must, there are most beautiful chapters. Adaiya should take a good lesson for. Ahzab was fully depicted in Surah Al-Ahzab. I mean, the battle of Ahzab, in which Muslim community of Medina witnessed one of the most dangerous union or military campaign they had ever seen in their lives, when many troops of Kuffar from Mecca and neighboring Jews all connived and gathered together to harm them right deep inside Medina, we can say. So Allah the Almighty now defended them against the attack of those intruders. Allah the Almighty says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ جاءتكم جنود فأرسلنا عليهم ريحا وجنودا لم تروها. Well, quickly let's move on to benefits of narrations. So I think even before checking, we may wish to use our sense, common sense, to come up with most of the benefits we can get in addition to what we have on the board. So you have the right to contain some, right? But of course, we can add something. We can add something in addition to what we say. For example, to elucidate the foundation of da'wah, to form a strong base for da'wah. How? By referring back to the nasty experience of du'at of the past. More importantly, who? Al-Anbiya. That is the previous prophets, antecedent prophets. How they, face the challenges of da'wah, how they